So you want to open a restaurant, but you need a location. A lot of people who want to open a restaurant have this picture in their head. They think they're going to find an empty restaurant, the kitchen is already built, the equipment is already there, and all they have to do is rent it from the landlord, make a few changes, and open their doors. Now, is it possible to find something like that? Yeah, but in reality, it's highly unlikely, especially if you're trying to find one in the exact location where you want your business to be. Most of the time, you have two realistic options. You either lease a blank commercial space and build out your restaurant, or purchase an existing restaurant business or its assets, then work out the lease for that location. Let me explain. Let's say somebody comes to me and says, David, I want to open a restaurant. Help me find a location. The first thing I want to know is where they actually want to operate. Where are your customers? What community are you trying to serve? And where does your business have the best chance of succeeding? Once we figure that out, then we start looking at what is actually available in that area. And realistically, one of the things we're probably going to find is a blank commercial unit. Maybe it's in a strip mall or another commercial building, but when you walk inside, it's basically going to be an empty box. There's no restaurant kitchen, there's no hood or equipment, and the space may not even have plumbing or electrical that your restaurant needs. The landlord is basically saying, here's the space, you can rent it. Then it becomes your responsibility to turn that space into your restaurant. You might have to build the kitchen, install the hood and equipment, and finish the dining area. All of that costs money. Sometimes we can negotiate what's called Tenant Improvement allowance, or TI, from the landlord. Basically, the landlord agrees to contribute some money towards improving the space. But you should not go into the deal assuming the landlord is going to pay for everything. You may need your own cash. You may need financing. Or you might use a combination of your money and the landlord's TI allowance. So that's the first realistic option. Find the right location, lease the blank space, and build the restaurant you want. Now, the second realistic option is finding an existing restaurant business in the area where you want to operate. Let's say we find the perfect location, but there's already a restaurant operating there. But the kitchen is built, the equipment is already installed, and the dining area is already finished. The current restaurant owner wants to sell. Now, this is where people sometimes get confused. That restaurant owner may not own the building. They may just be renting the space from the landlord. So when they say they're selling the restaurant, they're not necessarily selling you the building. They might be selling you the operating business, or they might just be selling you the assets inside the restaurant. That could include the kitchen equipment, the furniture and fixtures, and other assets that you might need to operate. If you're purchasing the actual business, there could also be value in things like the business name, the customer base, or goodwill. But the important thing is that somebody already spent the money and time to build the restaurant. So instead of starting with an empty box, you're purchasing what's already there. Then you can make whatever changes you need for your own concept. Maybe change the branding, update the dining area. Maybe you replace some equipment, but you're not necessarily starting from scratch. And depending on the numbers, that could save you a lot of time and potentially a lot of money. But there's something very important to understand. Buying the restaurant does not automatically give you the right to stay in the building. You still have to work something out with the landlord. Maybe the existing lease can be assigned to you, or maybe the landlord wants you to sign a new lease. Either way, the purchase of the business and the lease needs to work together. You don't want to spend a bunch of money buying a restaurant and then find out that you can't get the lease. And this brings me back to the situation that a lot of new restaurant owners are hoping for. They want us to find a restaurant where the previous business has already left. Nobody is operating there, but somehow the kitchen, equipment, and major improvements are still there. And the landlord is just waiting for somebody to come along and rent it. Again, those spaces do exist, but they are highly unlikely to be available exactly where you need them. Think about why. Somebody spent a lot of money building that restaurant. If that business is still operating and those improvements have value, the owner is probably going to try to sell the business or sell those assets before simply just walking away. That's the same thing you would do if you already spent time and money building the restaurant. So if you're starting your search by saying, I only want a vacant restaurant that is already completely built out, you could be limiting yourself before you even get started. And that's how I see most people never get started, is because they have that mentality. Even worse, you might end up choosing the wrong location just because the space is already built. That's the part I really want business owners to think about. Let's say you're opening a community-based restaurant. Your customers are in a certain area. People there already know you, and your concept makes sense for that community. But there's no vacant, fully built restaurants available. Then, 20 miles away, you find one. The kitchen is there, the space looks good, and you could probably open pretty quickly. It might look like a great deal, but your customers aren't there. So did you actually find a better deal? Maybe not. You might save some money on the build out, but you could lose a lot of money operating in the wrong location. For me personally, I would rather start with the right location, then figure out which of the two realistic options make the most sense. Can I purchase an existing restaurant or assets in that area? Or can I find a blank commercial space and build out the restaurant myself? Those are the two options I would plan around. If that rare opportunity comes along where a vacant restaurant is already completely built out and it happens to be exactly where you want to operate, great. Take a serious look at it. But don't make that your business plan, because realistically, you could spend a very long time waiting for the perfect pre-built restaurant to become vacant in the perfect location. At the end of the day, this isn't just a real estate decision, it's a business decision. You have to think about your customers, you have to think about your money, and you have to think about what gives the business the best chance of succeeding. So if you're looking to open a restaurant, understand this before you start searching. Plan on either building out a blank commercial space or purchase an existing restaurant business or its assets. And if you happen to find that perfect vacant restaurant that is already built out, consider yourself lucky. Now, if this helped you understand how finding a restaurant location actually works, follow me for more breakdowns about business, real estate, and investing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one.